Hello everybody, and welcome to our first public meeting on Zoom. Except for many of you, this may be the first time you've used Zoom. This is certainly the first public meeting on Zoom. So where you might be a bit concerned about your usage of the software, you can imagine how we're currently feeling. So what we'll do is we will introduce everybody, but just sort of give you an idea of what we want to talk about tonight. We're mostly talking about the issue of housing in the Whitchurch area. We are also going to touch South Bristol Ring Road and the spatial development strategy, which is being prepared by the West of England Combined Authority. I'd like to welcome our panelists. Just briefly give you a description of how this version of Zoom works. So we are the panelists, you can see and hear us. The rest of you who are here as attendees, either in Zoom or possibly work Facebook Live, you'll find that we can't see you or hear you. Don't worry, that's what it's supposed to be with this version of Zoom. But there is a Q&A where you can submit a question, and Sarah here is monitoring that, and she will flag those up to us. A couple of residents have agreed in advance to join us to perhaps pose their question via camera, which is great, and we will give you a 5 to 10 second warning before we add you into the panel for a couple of minutes. That may turn your camera on automatically, so I'm just warning people of that in advance, and it may turn your microphone on automatically. Not, in which case you need to do that if you want us to be able to see and hear you. Just a couple of other housekeeping elements. We are recording the meeting. You probably should have got an automated warning. We're recording it here in Zoom. We may load that up to YouTube tomorrow, just so people can access the meeting who can't attend tonight. And it is also being broadcast live on Facebook via the Hengrave and Whitchurch Park ward page. So I just wanted for people to know that as attendees, you don't need to really worry about that. But obviously, if you're coming on via video, just be aware that we are broadcasting it to a wider audience than just a few people you see here. Okay, I think now I'll ask people to introduce themselves. So I'll start. So hi, I'm Tim Kent. I'm the councillor for Hengrave and Whitchurch Park ward, and I'm going to be attempting at chairing tonight's meeting. Tim, I think you're next.
Hello, I'm Tim Ball. I'm a Bath councillor, or Bath and North East Somerset councillor. I'm the current cabinet member in Bath and North East Somerset for strategic planning, housing, and economic development. So I should give an overview on strategic planning later on.
Thank you. Paul?
Thank you, Tim. I'm Paul May. I'm the councillor for Baines councillor for Whitchurch Village and Pensford. Whitchurch Village is a 12th century village, so it's got a lot of tradition with it. And we learnt the lesson around the JSP, which was the former aim to put 2,500 houses in our village, that by working together, Tim, you working with me as councillors, the action group, which Mary represents tonight, and the parish council, and of course the South Bristol Wrong Road group, it shows that communities can influence when something is really wrong and inappropriate in the green belt. So I think that's going to be the line very much that I will be supporting all evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. That's great. Mary, do you want to introduce your?
Yes, my name is Mary Walsh, and I'm a founder member of Whitchurch Village Action Group, set up to help keep the green belt. I think that's sufficient for a long time.
Faye, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, I'm Faye Dicker. I'm the founder of the South Bristol Wrong Road Group. I'm sure many of you know our work. It was born when we, in 2018, when we first heard about the plans and the proposals for the South Bristol Wrong Road. So that was 2 years ago in the public meeting that Councillor Paul May held, and we've been campaigning ever since. We work closely alongside local councillors, the local MPs. We cross all the boundaries, so we cover Stockwood, Whitchurch and Whitchurch Village. And in turn, that's also 2 councils, so that's both Bristol City Council and Baines. We're not a political group, we're not affiliated with any political parties, but instead we try and work alongside all the local councillors and MPs to preserve the green belt in our local area.
Great, thank you very much, Faye. And Kim, do you want to introduce yourself?
My name's Kim Hicks. I've lived in Whitchurch, Bristol, in the Bristol City Council for about 40 years now. I, in fact, used to live on Windways, and I've got a couple of relatives that still live on Windways myself now. I'm quite active in the community now with various things, and I work alongside Faye on the South Bristol Wrong Road Group.
Great, thank you. And Sarah, certainly not least, do you want to just tell everyone who you are, or at least what you're doing here tonight for us?
I'm Sarah Classick. I'm part of the Pengrave and Whitchurch Park team, and I'm just here tonight doing sort of admin and tech assistance if anyone needs it. So if anyone's got any problems, flag me, Q&A or chat, and if you've got any questions, put them in the Q&A and I'll be putting them to the panellists.
Great, wonderful, thank you. And Sarah's the only one who really knows how this software works well. So if it all goes well. So, welcome everybody. We actually now have well over people here. I know it doesn't feel like it when you're just talking to a camera, but there's 46, 47 attendees. It keeps flicking a little bit. Just so everybody knows, we have one attendee via phone. Welcome. I think you were hoping it was going to be on YouTube. That's failed. Regarding phone, that obviously the phone can't see us. So just sort of be aware that if you are saying something, occasionally we will try to introduce you or say who you are, just so those people who are phoning in knows who's speaking. So we've covered the introductions quite well. I think at this point, what I was going to ask is whether Faye and Kim, you wanted to give us a very brief update on the current position, the Ring Road or Orbital Highway or whatever name it currently goes by, road proposals. That'd be great.
Yeah, thanks ever so much for that intro, Tim, and thanks for inviting us tonight. We really do appreciate it. Sort of a brief update. I'm sure much of you know, or many of you know, that we stumbled across really the proposals for the South Bristol Wrong Road, which has now been named, I think I'm right in saying, the South East Orbital Highway or Low Carbon Emissions Corridor. It gets called different things at different points. It always makes me think of the Shakespeare quote of that, what which a rose by any other name should smell as sweet. It's still a road. We don't really want it particularly. It doesn't matter what you call it or how you try and dress it up particularly. We campaigned for the most part of last year to get people to oppose the road and to oppose the housing. So there were 2 consultations that were going on. One was for the JSP, the Joint Spatial Plan, that was for the housing that was being proposed in Whitchurch Village, and the other was the JLTP4, that was the actual road itself. We were overjoyed, as I'm sure you can imagine, when the JSP was overturned. We had a seat at the hearing. Paul May was there, Tim Kent was there, Jill Britton, who I believe might be joining us later, was there as well. In fact, Mary Walsh, lots of us were all representing the various campaign groups for the area, and it was a really happy day. We hoped at that point it would all go away, it would all be forgotten, and it didn't quite. We did incredibly well when it came to the JLTP4 consultation. In fact, a third of the engagement came as a result of the Wrong Road, which was really, really good. The JLTP4 has now become the JLTP5, and it's kind of, this is at the point where the road has been renamed now this South East Orbital Highway. So we kind of get the impression that they're trying to sneak it in a nicey. This isn't going to be a great big road. Don't worry about that. It's just going to be something where we're going to put the odd bus and the odd bike. Obviously, we don't want any road of any sort going through any green belt, because you cannot rebuild green belts ultimately. I think it's really important to remember as well that some of these names, some of these terms have now got new terms. There's lots of jargon that goes about, but in essence, we're talking about houses and roads. The JSP is now being renamed to the SDS. I'm sure Tim will walk and talk you through things. I know Tim's going to share a slideshow with you later. I think it's really important to remember as well that everything you see, nothing's sort of set in stone, nothing is coming from the councils. It's all important to engage with processes all the way along the way and just keep pushing back. There is a public consultation that's out at the moment that'd be really useful if you could engage with. That closes on the 14th of December. It's pinned at the moment at the top of our Facebook page. If you want to get involved, if you want to help us, please do. We're always welcome to have any volunteers. Kim, is there anything I've missed out?
I think you probably covered it all there in a nutshell.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks for that. That was a good update. I guess the only other update, and Tim Ball will be aware of this, is that I did have Dina Romero, leader of Bath and North East Somerset, join me before lockdown, where they were fairly clear that they oppose the concept of a road. But as you sort of say, there is still a corridor there, and the idea is that's supposed to be bus or bike only, is their view. But of course it's convincing other people sometimes of that view is the issue. And as we know now, it's not just one council, we've also got the West of England Combined Authority, which brings people together, also brings another layer of complexity to this. Paul, I'm about to begin a slideshow. Was there anything else you wanted to add before I into the slideshow? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, just one thing really, and that is to reflect that within your slideshow, most of the land, if not all of it, is in Bath and North East Somerset, and it is currently greenbelt. And although developers up and down the country have tried challenging the greenbelt, very few, if any, have ever succeeded. And that greenbelt is not just green fields. There's very few green belts around the country. So they are really important, and they really do need to be defended wherever they can. That's all I'm saying at the moment. Thank you.
That's great. Sarah, I saw you with your hand up. Was there something you needed to tell us?
Yeah, sorry, I've just had a comment come through, or a question from Graham Sims. He's just said the Lib Dems in Baines seem to oppose the ring road. Why don't you take a formal decision now in full council stating that you will never support its construction in any form and insist that it's removed from the GALTP5? This is obviously a non-political, specific political party event, so this would just be Tim speaking for himself.
Tim, did you want to address the ring road issue now, and then I'll bring you back in again in a bit to discuss?
Yes, I'll do so very briefly. From the very outset, I've opposed the ring road regardless, and that's never changed. You have to do things through evidence base, and it has to be based on pure evidence. If you're doing planning on highways, it has to be evidence based. We cannot legally move that route at the moment. We have to go through consultation processes with the SDS, with the JLTP process. At the end of the day, we don't intend putting a road to provide housing. At the end of the day, I'll explain more later on, but I mean, that's basic statement at the moment.
Okay, thanks. Well, I think that was relatively clear. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, what we'll attempt to do now, and I really have several people now on the telephone who are phoning in. I'm afraid for you guys, you won't be able to see this, but we will explain it as we go. It's just a quick slideshow to give you a little bit of the concept of what's happened and perhaps where the threat that we may face or may not face. Now I'm going to attempt to share this onto your screens. This may work, may not, and it may take about 10 or 20 seconds to appear. So I'm gonna start this now. Sarah, can you shout out when you can see it on your screen? You can see it, yeah?
It started screen. Oh yeah, I've got it now.
Okay, great. I'll give it another sort of 5 seconds or so, just to sort of perhaps appear on other people's screens. I do apologise to those who have phoned in, because obviously you can't see this, but we will explain mostly what's there, and it's only a few slides. Now I'll try to get onto the next page. This is always the bit that normally doesn't work then. Right, oh, here we go. Right, okay, so so what happened really? So the previous spatial strategy that failed, it did not get past the public inspectors. That originally started off with a proposal of around 3,500 houses in the Whitchurch area. And if we go way back in time, like 2008, 2010, people remember there was even talk of a 9,500 housing new urban extension stroke town somewhere in the location of Whitchurch, Keynsham. I don't think it was ever fully pinned down. But where this started was around 3,500 houses. This then got sort of rolled back a bit to about the 2,500 house mark by the time it got to the planning inspectors. But at that point, the plan failed. And one of the reasons it failed was sort of around Whitchurch, but it was around the decision-making process with how the West of England came to choose locations and why it chose those locations. It could not demonstrate that well. Just to sort of let you know, just to prove that we're not all being a bunch of NIMBYs here tonight, Hengrove and Whitchurch Park Ward has already agreed to take over 3,000 new homes. So that's within the ward of Hengrove and Whitchurch Park in Bristol. Many of those are at Hengrove Park, controversially, but there's other sites as well, and that will deliver over 3,000 new homes. That's a 40% increase in housing in the area. So we are going a long way to do our bit to meet the need for new homes. That's not in denial, there is a need. So the government are currently consulting on changes to the way planning works and a new streamlined planning regulations, which would sort of say that if you pass these spatial plans and local plans, there might be an implied consent, and that the very sort of the normal planning process, they might be able to not have to go through completely. So it really does make these large strategy plans even more important, and to make sure that we've got our arguments marshalled for them. And also the government, quite controversially, has proposed an algorithm. I think they would have learnt about algorithms by now, setting housing targets, and that would see a far higher target for our area. In fact, we'll see about a 40% increase on the number of houses based on where the local authorities currently think we need to be. Up on your screen, I want to explain this diagram to you, for those of you that can see. This is what Taylor Wimpey, or at least their consultants, produced back in January 2018. So I'm not saying this is what they're submitting now, and this is not from the council. This was part of a very long submission they made to Bath and North East Somerset Council, is where we found it. It's not radically different to actually something that's been produced from about the last 10, 12 years. There's quite a series of diagrams, all very similar. What you will see here is housing really stretching between the A37, in fact, even slightly beyond it, all the way to the Windways estate. So in other words, covering those fields. And by the way, I'm not necessarily saying that Taylor Wimpey or their other partners, in fact, they call themselves the consortium, own all that land. But I believe they own a majority interest in that land. So this is sort of the area that we know they want to propose to develop. And we know that as part of the previous plan that failed, Bath and North East Somerset did resist development in this area quite strongly. And that was predominantly on a heritage statement and protecting the green belt. Although they were proposing additional housing at Whitchurch, it was not in this location. So, but it is clear that the consortium are questioning the heritage statement and also the value of the green belt. So we just got to be aware that others are marshalling arguments that development should occur in this area. Now, just to slightly explain the picture in front of you as well, there's a few roads going across it. There is a dotted sort of grey line to the south. That is their suggestion of the route of the South Bristol Ring Road. You'll be aware that is different to the suggestion made previously of it going basically into the bottom of Stonebury or into Washingpound Lane. That is basically going back to the original suggestion 10 years or so ago. I believe they probably make that suggestion because that works best for their site. It does not in any way imply, by the way, that that suggestion is being put forward by the councils. This is a piece of artwork submitted by Taylor Wimpey's consultants. The blue line going across it is what they call the boulevard, and the idea is that that would be their main transport link and their main hub within the community. I think they're probably suggesting that it doesn't actually fully connect at Stonebury. It would probably be a bus gate there, just to sort of explain their current thinking with this. As I said, this has no permission at all. It just simply gives us an idea, perhaps, of the thinking of some of the house builders and what they would like to achieve. So the current proposals for housing for the Bath and North East Somerset area is around 14,000 needed over the next sort of 15 to 20 years. But the government algorithm would push that up to 28,000. And that's part of the problem we could face, because that is a substantial amount of housing. That algorithm's not been agreed yet. They've only consulted on it, so it could change. WECA have now begun their consultation on the spatial development strategy, and we'll take a look at that in a second. Bath and North East Somerset are consulting on updating their local plan. That is far smaller in scale. It's far more about some of the rules and some of the environmental elements and their agenda around zero carbon emissions by 2030. From what I can tell, and we do have Tim here and he'll clarify that in a minute, it is not actually at this point seeking large scale developments. But it is separate to the WECA consultation, which is about the spatial development strategy, and that's the one we really want to highlight to people today. So up on screen now, what you will see is the timetable for that. So you will see that they have begun the online survey and engagement, which they've sort of said in autumn 2020. There is a link there to where you can find it. What we will do is we will send everybody a copy of this link who've registered here today, and we'll put it up on Facebook as well, so you can get a copy of it. And do remember, we're going to have this recorded on Facebook, and we will put up a copy of this broadcast on YouTube, so you'll be able to find that link. Closing date is, I think, 12th of December, so it's important people reply soon, really. And then you can sort of see the timetable is they hope to get to the examination stage by 2022. I mean, that's fast. So, you know, at this point, they're looking at the concepts, and this is actually where we need to put our strong arguments. Our strong arguments should be that, you know, that the concept of development. And one of the key things, if you fill in that survey, is to talk about the protection of heritage assets. It is specifically asked, and Maze Knoll, the fort there, and the Wansdyke is one of the few heritage assets, monuments in the area. So that specific question actually is probably very relevant to this site. Now, I think we'll stop sharing, if that's okay. And that was really just to sort of give everybody a brief idea of where we've gone and where we're potentially now at. Tim, I wondered if you could just give us an update from Bath and North East Somerset Council on, I guess, more the local plan update than anything, but anything you want to add for the next few minutes.
Thank you, Tim. Very useful slideshow just now, which helps set the context quite a bit up. Spatial development, whatever you want to call the thing, the mayoral plan is called all sorts of things at the moment, and you are right to take the consultation at the moment. The second half of 2021, there will be a statutory consultation on the plan, and the examination is in 2022, and the publishing of the plan in 2022. It's not one you have adopted, it's a published plan. Bath and North East Somerset Council at the moment are basically engaged in 3 local plans in 3 years. We're doing the update of our current local plan, our core strategy, which includes a lot of environmental issues coming through, so we can set the store correctly on our green credentials in Bath and North East Somerset. Also, we're reviewing our housing policies on student housing, HMOs, and other issues that are there, including parking standards as well. So that's a part of a refresh we're doing at the moment. There will be some small-scale housing intake, and we'll be looking to bolster our 5-year land supply, but it's not major housing sites we're actually looking for at this particular stage. What you'll find coming through, though, in this whole process, and all councils will be involved in this, is they're all running local plans at the same time as the STS is running. And a call for sites has already gone out, as far as I'm aware, in all councils for new housing sites for the local plans. Should be coming through in 223, 224 in some councils. The government's told us we all have to adopt in 223 and would be out of kilter. So from doing a core strategy that was done in the last administration, Bath and North East Somerset I was involved in, which took us 7 years to do one, we're doing 3 in 3, which is a miraculous timescale to turn this to a level round. It can be done, it will be done. Some of the sites coming through on a call to sites call for sites will be identified in the Whitchurch area because developers will put them in. It's by no means will be taking those sites forward at all. They have to be looked at evidence-based and looked at correctly and properly, whether they can actually be included in any future plans. In Bath and North East Somerset, we believe very clearly that housing should go on strategic corridors or strategic hubs, not developing roads to provide housing. It's a different concept we've actually got. The main road corridors are the ones that should be taking housing supply. Housing will be needed in Whitchurch. I think Paul May will acknowledge that particular point. The level of housing is something we have to debate and work out. It's a quick flavour of where coming from my end. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them or updates further.
That was great. Thank you, Tim. I think that was very clear for everybody. What I'll do first is, before we open this up to public questions, which we will begin in a second, were there any points or questions from members of the panel? Yeah, I see Paul, and then Kim.
Can I just want to add a few points if I can? The road or corridor or whatever was in JLTP for showing it costing £155 million of 2 miles of road through Greenbelt. So I think the Council of Baines has recently agreed an ecological emergency, and I think that would be really against the concept of building a road through such valuable Greenbelt between Bristol and Keynsham and Whitchurch Village. I think the Whitchurch Village has seen a growth of 50% due to the previous council's arrangement to build on Horseworld, and that has been a significant development which has affected the village, but has kept it still as a village. And if there is any further development, it is important that we recognise that Whitchurch Village is a village, and the development in the Greenbelt is inappropriate if it's not done correctly and properly. The main point that we put up in terms of the case was that politically the sites that were rejected in the JSP weren't done in a transparent way, and secondly that if you apply what's known technically as the NPPF, the National Planning Policy Framework, which all housing is decided by, that Whitchurch is not a sustainable location for development, and that was the reason why they were trying to put the road in. And it was always been a case of no road, no houses, no houses, no road. And it's really good to hear Tim Ball say that what he's just said tonight.
Thanks. Kim, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just one quick question actually for Tim. I think the root cause of the problem are the amount of houses you are now being expected to build due to this algorithm. And I think that probably gives a green light to the potential house builders to think, oh, great, we're going to have an opportunity here. What are you doing to actually say, I'm sorry, this number we've been given to give is not realistic whatsoever, because Bath and North East Somerset, as the council area, is the majority of it is a green belt, and Bath being a conservation area, it's very, very difficult to get that number of houses in. So what are you saying to say, no, we can't do it, it's ridiculous?
Okay, I took a report from the full council meeting a few weeks ago, and Paul will acknowledge that came through. Instead of commenting myself, we sent a strong rebus to government to say basically Bath and North East Somerset Council cannot take this level of housing. We could take the original level of housing, only just even there, because we are mainly greenbelt area, and we basically built on majority places that are able to be built on brownfield land without touching the greenbelt really heavily. So we sent a very strong rebus to government and to both MPs in the area as well. I know one's acknowledged it, but the other one's answered yet, but I'm sure that will be happening very shortly.
I'm sure. Thanks for that, Tim, and thanks for those points. Sarah, can we get ready to allow Jill Britton to come into the meeting? Because I know that she wanted to make a point or ask a question. Jill, we're just sort of giving you your warning.
Yeah, Jill, this is your warning to be camera ready if your camera turns on automatically. I'm letting you in now. So that should.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hi. Anyway, feel free to either ask your question or make your point, Jill.
Well, I think you're making the points that I wanted to raise perfectly. As Mary said, we've been on this journey a long time, starting with the RSS, then the JLP, JSP, and now we're on to WECA. But they're all the same thing, really, but given another name. I farm on the green belt, and it is valuable, whatever Taylor Wimpey may think. It's very valuable. There are only 14 green belts throughout the country. So green belt is not the thing that's holding up the housing, because there are only 14 of them, but they're incredibly valuable, because if they weren't there, Whitchurch wouldn't be there as it is, my farm wouldn't be there as it is, and we contribute as a pasture-driven farm to be very favourable under the new carbon problems. So I just can't argue enough about the fact that this piece of land is very valuable to everybody, to be able to come out and walk and to be able to farm it. Taylor Wimpey's map, I mean, I love them. The road will be going through my farm. Then they're going to put a footpath up through to Maysnell. I don't know if anybody's ever walked up there, but you know, it's a bit of a haul. So it's all pie in the sky, and I appreciate that Taylor Wimpey do not have a planning application in at the moment, and this is a speculative thing. They've been very busy with their quad bikes out with machinery on behind, which I'm presuming is an archaeological survey to see what is underneath the ground. But the fear is that Taylor Wimpey only ever spend money when they're fairly confident that they're going to get something through. So we have to be absolutely on our ball to try to fight this. Whitchurch Village Action Group has set up a Facebook page, which I am going to try to advertise more, because we're going to need every ounce of people's help over the next year to prevent this travesty. And I thank you all for being so behind trying to stop it. That's about all. I don't have a question really, because you've answered them all.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you very much for coming in and sharing that with us. And I think a couple of things actually I just thought I should mention. One, I did not invite Taylor Wimpey to this meeting, so it may be perhaps in future we will invite them and the rest of the consortium to attend a meeting. Maybe we can share views. I suspect we probably wouldn't come to an agreement at the end.
I expect they're listening.
I expect they are as well.
They will be.
Given the amount of money they spent on surveyors, I would have thought they may have clicked on a Zoom link on Facebook, but that's fine. I mean, we've got nothing to hide here, so that's fine. But I think perhaps in future we may invite them to a future meeting, and I think that's an important point, that you've already got an action group set up, and probably people who are listening in from the Whitchurch Bristol City end could potentially come in and aid and join your action group.
Absolutely, they all need to do that, because they are the ones that are impacted the most along Windways and Forester Road, I think it is. I can't remember the name of the road, but running on from Windways right through to Hengrove is they'll be impacted by it enormously. One of our fields that is elevated is called Spring Ground, and it's called Spring Ground for the reason it produces water springs, and so everything below it is very wet. And when Bridge Farm was put in, they had immense problem with flooding, so you can imagine another tranche of land going to concrete beyond that is going to create problems, and I know they overcome these things, but it doesn't make it right.
Thanks, Jill. Can I remind people that if they want to submit questions, they can do that through the Q&A, or there might be a chat function as well, and just type your questions in, and we will address it as a panel, or type your point, and Sarah's there to highlight it to us. And we have over 50 people now joined us, so that's really good. I don't know how many are watching on Facebook, but just to give people an idea, our fairly pathetic attempt to test the software a day or two ago, over 200 people have watched that. I guess with lockdown, you're so bored that you literally will watch anything. So I don't know how many are watching us on Facebook, but welcome as well. And you can submit a question by just putting in Facebook chat, and we have somebody else monitoring that. At least I hope they've remembered that they volunteered to monitor it. Oh, right, Sarah's monitoring it as well. Great. So so we can pick that up. Now, Sarah, I was going to ask, can you, I'm just trying to find him here on the list. Can you add David Millard? I think he might be in under his wife's name.
I think I spotted him a little while earlier. Yeah, okay. David, this is now your warning that you're about to be allowed into this chat.
And if we could say goodbye to you, Jill, that'd be great, just to sort of keep everything in order. Thank you very much for joining. David, welcome.
Welcome. Good evening. Thank you for setting the meeting up. Just really like to kind of echo a lot of the things that have already been said, and also what Jill has just said. So yeah, I do have a question at the very end, and I guess at the risk of kind of repeating everything that's already been said, it probably is good if Wimpey are kind of listening in, which I'm sure they are, that they understand the kind of feeling and the passion of kind of us local people. So kind of a bit of background for me. Lived in South Bristol all my life. I'm a local resident now. We live in Windways. Our house actually backs onto the fields behind Emmett Wood. I've also been involved with Faye and Kim since the very beginning of the South Bristol Wrong Road, and currently treasurer still for the group. So the bit that kind of myself and my wife don't really comprehend is, you know, if let's assume this kind of was to go ahead, which clearly we'll fight to avoid, how Baines would in theory be allowed, and sorry Tim, this is no kind of dig at yourself, to Bristol. They'd be giving Bristol all the road congestion, pollution, more people into kind of GP surgeries, into schools. But of course, the flip side is that they would kind of get the council tax, whereas Bristol wouldn't. So Bristol kind of have to pick up the tab if approved, and obviously Baines kind of collect the council tax. Again, echoing what kind of Jill and others have said, it still looks like the plans would send an awful lot of traffic past the school if this was approved. It looks like from the drawings that were shared as well, there will be significant impacts not only to Jill's farm, literally to kind of where Mary lives as well, looking at the map, into the rugby, the cricket and the football locally, and all the people that would kind of impact. Massive impact into the wildlife. I mean, we all kind of love looking and watching and seeing various wildlife kind of around and about, and of course the pollution. And the big one for me, as I look at it out my window every single day, I've been told not to mention the dog walkers, so I won't, is the water, the underground spring, the kind of the flooded field one up from kind of the one I back onto. It just floods through the whole time. Now I get there's kind of, you know, all these technologies that are around and about, but to Jill's point, and I think was said just now, if we put more concrete down, that water's got to go somewhere, and I dread to think where it might end up going, other than potentially into kind of my foundations and foundations of other people around and about. So that's my statement, my rant, my feelings kind of shared for kind of Taylor Wimpey, if you are listening. Question is, what can we as local residents actually do?
Thanks, Dave. That was great, and I think that is a very good question. I think the first thing we did was to hold this public meeting so people can have a chance to hear about the challenge and vent their feeling. I think secondly, we've already heard there are groups organised, and I think it's about hooking up with those groups so we can get our arguments in order. Now I can see Paul and Faye, so I'm going to bring you in if that's okay in that order. So Paul and then Faye.
Can I just reinforce the point that Councillor Ball made, that when this goes to a public inquiry, there will be the rules and regulations around that NPPF I mentioned earlier, and it will be evidence-based. So that if there's developers watching, they're going to have to be able to prove their case. The community has shown that it can highlight when there's something gone wrong in the process. And that was the reason the JSP failed, and that was the community working together. So I think really the question to you, Dave, is that we carry on working together, because I think if we don't, then we can get all played off one against the other, because there's different areas of land, and I think it's really important we actually recognise that Whitchurch and Whitchurch Village is not a sustainable location for development. And I think that issue is still going to be there as this goes through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Faye and then Tim.
Really, I just wanted to remind you, David, and I know you're familiar and up to speed with this because we've worked alongside each other, that the picture that you saw that Tim shared, as horrible as it is to see, that is from 2018. It's nearly 3 years old. It was there as part of that JSP, which in itself was overthrown. We still have a long process to go through. We know that Baines will be looking to the brownfield sites before they go to greenfield sites. There will be hearings. There'll be the same process that we pushed against before. So that picture that you saw relates, I'm just recapping, is 2018. We do know that out and about. We do know what they want to do. But what you saw on your screen isn't a proposal that's come from Baines or anyone else, and there are processes in which to go through, and we just need to make sure that we keep pushing back every step of the way. And the first thing to do is just to engage in that consultation, and the deadline for that is December the 14th.
Thanks. And Tim.
Yes, I think the words are clean, green, sustainable development. All development has to be sustainable now. It has to be clean. It has to be as green as possible. If it's not sustainable, it's not going to work. You'll see emerging for the Baines local plan, which will be the 2023 version, it's going to be very much environmentally first, to ensure any development takes place in the correct locations. Where it does take place as well, it's going to have to demonstrate it can actually deliver against environmental concerns that are going to be there on all locations. Water, flooding, etc. will all need to be taken into account. Everything will have to be evidence-based and not just based on a whim anymore, that we can do it. So evidence will have to be produced that it can be done if anything happens at all anywhere.
Right, thanks, Tim. And then just to let people know, at the end of this event, I think you'll be automatically emailed a survey, and in that you can volunteer to join a local residents action group, which I suspect we will establish to work alongside or part of the Whitchurch action groups and the Wrong Road group. So rather than be a third completely independent group, it seems to make a lot more sense that it will be working alongside either one or both of those groups. So there'll be a quick survey which will go to you at the end, and that gives you a chance to volunteer to become part of that. Because I think what's clear is, though, the time frame for this strategic plan is a lot shorter than others. Now the advantage is we've already engaged with this in the past and won on a few occasions. But also so is the developer. I mean, there are hundreds of pages out there of attempts by them to bring forward development on this land. And of course, the danger is if there is this higher housing number, all councils will be desperately trying to find places to put housing. Sarah, I'm going to turn to you now. And sorry, Dave, are you happy? Oh, sorry, Paul, I can see you.
One small point. I think it's important moving forward. The Whitchurch Action Group and the South Bristol Wrong Road Group have clearly been non-political, and I hope that what you're suggesting will also be non-political, because I think it is important that we actually see this as the communities working together rather than playing politics between one party and another.
Yeah, no, I very much see that. Yeah, I very much see them potentially even being part of those groups. Dave, are you happy that we've at least partly addressed your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of, we need to engage with more people, clearly, get more people involved. The survey will help. We win hearts and minds, and yeah, absolutely echo Paul's final thoughts there about being apolitical. So good luck, and continue the fight.
Great, thanks, Dave. And actually, you've reminded me, Paul, that I should give the apologies of Councillor Barry Clark, Labour councillor for Hengrove and Whitchurch Park. Notice got to him just too late, and he was not able to rearrange his work commitments. Otherwise, he would have been here, and we would have had all parties represented. But unfortunately, we had to rush this one out because of lockdown, and it did slightly lead to a few communication problems as we desperately tried to get everything organised in time before we were locked in our houses. Sarah, can I turn to you? Are there a couple of questions via the Q&A that you can perhaps pose to us, or points?
Yeah. So there's a few questions now. I've got a couple that have come in from Facebook. My wonderful assistant Andrew is keeping an eye on those and sending those through to me. So Dan White has said, we went to a huge amount of trouble and even had a referendum to show preference for a neighbourhood plan for Hengrove Park. Despite this supposedly being a legal requirement to consider this, it was basically discarded and ignored, and the original plan was allowed to progress virtually unchallenged. Given this happened, despite our willingness to engage and offer a superior solution, I feel there's no point getting involved as it will be ignored again. Yeah, any response to that?
Okay, well, that was very specifically regarding, yes, the neighbourhood plan that we've got in Hengrove and Whitchurch Park. And of course, there is a neighbourhood plan also for Whitchurch Village, which is separate. So just to be clear, I think that's under the Localism Act, and somebody else, I think, put up a question about the Localism Act in the Q&A. So the problem with neighbourhood plans is they are additional planning guidance, but they cannot supersede the strategic, as in the spatial and the local plans put in place by the authorities, and new plans can sort of veto neighbourhood plans, and that is a problem. I don't want people to think it was a complete waste of time, the Hengrove plan. I mean, we did win some small victories with it, but I can understand why people feel that way. But just to be clear, the Wrong Road Group, the Whitchurch Action Group, Whitchurch Parish Council, Paul May and myself, we all fought tooth and nail against the previous spatial plan, and I mean, and it died. I mean, it got absolutely shredded by the planning inspectors. It didn't even get past, I think, week 3 of the public hearing. Paul, did you want to come in?
Yes, it was about the neighbourhood plans as well. You know, quite clearly, the neighbourhood plan goes through inspectors. So if it's been through the inspectors, it does become the local plan. Yes, a strategic plan can over trump it, but the simple fact is that it is actually defined within the Localism Act as a development plan. And I think in terms of Councillor Ball sat there, he will understand that in Whitchurch Village, we identified that the development as you come into the village on the right-hand side, where the Horse World site is, that was a much more suitable location in terms of where any development should take place, and not the land that has been shown this evening in the plans from Taylor Wimpey. That's highly sensitive land, and I think that we could actually be arguing the case around the development that's taken place already, that 50% growth that the village has taken on the Horse World site.
Thanks, Paul.
We did work with developers on that, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I think that's very useful. I think people, I think to be clear, at the moment, planning policy and law is on our side. I think we should be clear that Bath and North East Somerset as a council has held out very strongly against development in this area. Please don't think that we can't win this battle. The odds are very strongly on our side, but we've got to make sure we marshal all of our arguments. We can't just sit back and hope, because at the same time, we do see Taylor Wimpey spending a lot of money on surveyors, and clearly they believe that they are in with a chance to change that policy, and that is the argument. It's going to be a policy argument. But thanks for those points. Did anyone else want to come in, or should we get a couple more questions, Sarah?
Yeah, we've got a few more questions, so I can ask those. I mean, there's one from Diane Baker through Facebook, who just wants to know how she can get involved. She lives in Whitchurch. We've mentioned sort of various action groups and things like that, and campaigns to get involved with. So is it worth, when we do a sort of post-event communication via email and stuff, just putting links to sort of all those groups in there so that people know where they can actually go to and which campaign groups they can get involved with?
That's a good point. We will make sure we get that information out to people. So people watching on Facebook, you can leave a public comment. You could send a message to the page, which will be a private message then. And also we will replicate the survey which attendees should receive for a way for people on Facebook and YouTube to engage. We've just got to work out how we do that. That's all. That's a very brief survey. In fact, we do have a poll actually. Should we attempt to run one of these polls? So the first poll we have is, do you support the building of housing on land between the A37 in Whitchurch Village and Windways Estate? I'll launch that poll. It is possible now. You've got the ability to vote, guys. Oh yeah, people are voting, so clearly they have. I get a feeling I might know the outcome of that, but what we will do is we will submit the results of the poll to the consultation, because it's probably more than anyone else has done. So we will submit that to the West of England Combined Authority. Now, there's been a couple of questions I noticed also come up about the West of England Combined Authority. What's it all about? What say do they have? What power actually does the mayor have? I see a few of these coming up. I was flicking through the people we've got attending. I do notice, and I'll say this, no big P politics, but we've got Stephen Williams in. Stephen, I know you have an interest in the West of England Combined Authority as a mayoral candidate. I was wondering if you could just come in very briefly and just say to us what the powers are of the mayor, the regional mayor in this situation. And that's currently Tim Bowles is the regional mayor. We're not talking about Marvin Rees here, just to be clear for the Bristol side. Sarah, could you just bring Stephen in briefly? Oh, and one other thing, we've got one or two people on the phone. I have read out, and this was a good point, if you're phoning from a landline and you have a package that lets you phone free for an hour, that's great, but keep an eye on your clock. You can hang up and redial back into the meeting you'll only lose 30 seconds or so. If you do that before you hit the 1 hour, then you won't be charged. Otherwise, you could clock up a £4 or £5 charge. So I just sort of warn people who are phoning in. Faye, I see you indicating, and Sarah, if you can see Stephen, dig him out for a minute. Thanks.
I just wanted to quickly answer one of the questions that's popped in before Stephen Williams joins us. It's a really quick one. Someone I can see has asked the question about what's happening to the village park just at Norton Lane in Whitchurch Village, because that's, you can see it's being demolished. It's a good news story. That's why I wanted to quickly nip in there, because we're actually getting a new playing park. So that is a good news story. Don't see that being demolished and think, my goodness me, what's going on? Is there a road being built? Are there houses being built? In actual fact, we're getting a new playing park. And if you look at the plans for that, they look beautiful. And there's a nice hard area as well for the children to play on and all sorts. So, but yeah, I just wanted to nip that one in nice and quickly.
Great, thanks. Oh, and Stephen, while you're just briefly telling us perhaps about the power of the mayor, there is also a question about the issue of North Somerset. Did you want to briefly address that as well?
Can you hear me or see me?
We can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
All right, okay. I even wore a nice shirt for the meeting. What a disappointment, you can't see me. Hello everyone, and thanks to Tim for inviting me along. I was with you recently down in the fields, looking at the sites where housing is proposed, and early in the year we were down by Washing Pound Lane and Mags Lane, where the road might go as well, and I can confirm I'm opposed to both of those. You've asked me a factual question about the West of England Combined Authority. That currently is a partnership of Bristol City Council, Bath and North East Somerset Council, South Gloucestershire Council, and hopefully North Somerset Council as well may well be joining in time for the next mayoral election, which is scheduled at the moment for May 2021. That's in some doubt at the moment because the mayor of Bristol, another mayor, is objecting to North Somerset joining the authority, which I think is quite a shame, because we're an incomplete jigsaw puzzle without them. Long Ashton, Nailsea, Backwell, Weston-super-Mare and so on belong in the same region as Bristol and Bath, and I do hope party politics can be overcome on that front, and we'll all be together voting in the mayoral election next May, when you will have an opportunity to elect a new regional mayor for the area. The West of England, as Tim asked me to explain what it does, is the strategic planning authority for the whole of that region, which is about 1.1 million people. So it's a big chunk of England, and it has powers over land use, transportation planning, and adult skills in the area as well. So it's a key driver for the local economy and how we come out of COVID and the shock of Brexit in a sustainable and green way. As Tim Ball, my colleague Tim Ball was saying earlier, all development now, we want it to be sustainable and green going forward. So brand new roads just to serve cars really are a thing of the past, and we shouldn't be looking to those in the future. And any new housing development, certainly if I'm the mayor from May next year, really does need to be linked to good public transport and cycling provision as well, not just dumped on the edge of a major city, which is what will be happening here.
Right.
That's helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen, for coming in. That was useful and helpful, and someone asked a question about that. To make sure I get the political balance right, if you're happy, Stephen, we'll very politely give you the boot at this point. Sarah, could you bring Graham Morris in, who's councillor for Stockwood? And then we'll go back to questions which are in the chat. Hi, Graham.
Hello, good evening. Thank you ever so much for organising this, everyone, and for giving up your evenings on a very wet evening. Yeah, so very interesting discussion tonight. And I think one of my concerns, and I think we experienced it in particular, Tim, with our residents in Bristol, was when Baines were doing their local plan last time, people the other side of the border were not being consulted at the same time. And so I had quite a lot of people, a lot of angry people contacting me. So I think it's really important that any form of discussion around the local plan takes place in tandem between Baines and Bristol. And I'd like to know whether Baines has any form of regular dialogue with Bristol on any sort of developments or changes or proposals for this part of the area?
Thanks, that's a good question. Tim, did you want to address that?
Yes, if I can. We find exactly the same problems with Bristol from Bath and Somerset, and whatever Bristol's doing, we don't get consulted on either. It's an issue that's been going on for a long period of time, and this is one of the reasons why the West of England Combined Authority was set up, to ensure we all talk to each other. I was on Avon County Council years ago when we all had to discuss issues with one another to make sure we actually got plans through. It's my intention to making sure that people at the Bristol side of the border are informed of what goes on, and I will do that with local councillors the other side of the area. The consultation plans we're going to go through, we're going through the SDS process at the moment, which doesn't identify particular sites of land we're looking at. The local plans will do that, but these will all come through an SDS type environment anyway, because they've presented through the West of England. So hence Bristol will get consulted regardless.
Fantastic, thank you very much.
Thanks. Kim, sorry, I saw Kim. I'll let Kim come in, then I'll let you come back, Graham.
Okay. Can I just pick up here on the referring back to the South Bristol Wrong Group? We have got an overview of it all, in as much that we're not, as Faye said, we're not party political at all, and we look at whatever plans anybody's doing is affecting us as residents. So we are looking at what we do through resident eyes, and elections will come and go, no doubt councils will come and go, but we will still be here. We're still the residents, and we're the ones that have to deal with the effects of the plans that get put in place. And that's one big thing I learned, particularly with the fighting the JSP and the JLTP4, and that was there wasn't the communication enough to actually look after the interests of the ordinary residents, and that's what the South Bristol Wrong Road Group tries to do.
Right, thanks for that. Graham, did you want to come back?
No, it makes sense, and I offer my full support as one of the councillors for Stockwood Ward to work with Paul, with yourself, with Councillor Ball in Baines, and with the local residents to help shape, or to help inform and let people make up their own minds. I'm particularly interested in public transport because there is a car dependency. We need to reduce the usage of cars, that's without question, and public transport is one way of achieving it. I obviously have a few issues trying to get the councils to speak across border, but I'm not saying whose fault that is, even though I have a sneaking suspicion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg, for joining us. Mary, I do see you've got your hand up and your camera is off. Did you want to say anything, or is there a technical issue? We may come back to you, Mary. Sarah, was there one or two more questions from the floor that you could, or points you could perhaps emphasize to us?
Yeah, so I think we touched on Neighbourhood Planning and Locality Act, but there was a question about given the government's proposed changes to planning, do you have any idea of what those changes mean for the Neighbourhood Planning in 2011 and Locality Act? If there's any more points on that.
Right, I'll just give the result of the poll actually, because it was closer than I expected. 100% of people think the idea of developing this area is a bad idea. That's 42 votes with no to developing the area and 0 for. It appears that 4 people didn't vote, but they could be the people on the telephone. So to be fair to them, voting would be quite difficult. I'm going to put up the second poll now, if that's okay with people. So I wanted this to be interactive. Actually, I'm going to put up the second. I can show the results, so I'm doing that now. I have no idea how to put up the second poll. So Sarah, give everybody another question to answer while I try to sort this out.
So as a resident of Whitchurch, just inside the Bristol boundary, the land south of Whitchurch Village has been a real lifesaver during the first lockdown for recreational purposes. In addition, I can't see how the existing infrastructure could be expanded to support an enlarged residential area. And in addition, the Tories' proposed wholesale planning changes could have, Kim, you just put the poll right in front of my screen, could have an impact on the plan. So that was comments from Steve McComb. Chris Fox said, is there a map of what fields are in the green belt? Is that something that there is access to?
There is a map. Basically, I was looking at it earlier, it's all of them. The green belt covers a whole swathe of land in Bath and North East Somerset. It's not just a few fields. It is a significant proportion of around Bath and quite a swathe around Bristol as well. I think that's correct. Paul, did you have anything more specific to say on that, or?
I was just trying to read the questions that have been submitted. I think the one thing that has been discussed quite at length is during lockdown, the rural area in particular has become more important to residents, both of the city and the people who live in the rural areas. And I think if nothing else, it's made those rural areas very, very important. And when we did surveys in Whitchurch Village, we saw 98% of the village actually valued the green belt and used the green belt. I know lots of residents in the village who've seen more and more people, and yes, there's then associated problems, but the simple fact is the green fields around the city of Bristol are important to the people, not only, and I think we should actually celebrate that.
Right, thanks. I'm going to call Faye in a second just to say Sam Fox has very helpfully put up a link in the chat to the Greenbelt map. Thanks a lot for that, Sam. And he's also put up the link to the consultation. He's on fire tonight. So thanks for that, Sam. Hopefully those of you in the webinar can see those links in the Zoom chat, but we will make sure we put them up as well, at least on Facebook for people to access. We've only got a few minutes left. Faye.
I just wanted to recap and remind people that actually the green belt and the area that we've been talking about isn't solely owned by Taylor Wimpey. Some of the land is owned by the farmer, some of the land is owned by the diocese. It's a bit of a patchwork actually, so just wanted to remind people of that fact. And also to ask a question myself, what's happened to the HIF bid? And in case people are wondering what the HIF bid is the Housing and Infrastructure Fund, and I was always of the understanding that unless there was housing, they couldn't tap into the HIF bid, and it would be the HIF bid that would actually afford the road.
Tim, you're indicating anyway. Can we ask you to pick that point up as well?
Yes, the HIF bid was altered quite dramatically when the road was dropped. So basically the only parts of the HIF bid that are remaining are areas that in Bath, North East Somerset, we still continue to do some work, and in Bristol it still continues to work as well. My message was tonight at the ending, as we're very, very close to ending, if you see a consultation on planning, on highways, on roads, anything, respond to consultation. If it's the last thing you do, please respond, because it's the only way we'll alter things for the better.
Thanks. Paul.
And if there's any Wecker Mayor candidates listening still, if you get the responses, don't just put them into a big bundle and not respond to them. One of the major issues that happened around the JSP was people did respond. We had nearly 50% of our village responding, and it was just ignored. And I think, I think it's important that actually the responses are actually taken as the value of those responses.
Thanks, Paul. Now, we're getting close to the end. Sarah, I don't think we're going to have time for more questions, but what we will do is we will attempt to pick those up and make sure they are picked up and either answered to direct or picked up by the action groups. There is another poll up, by the way, guys, that you can vote in, which I see you have been voting quite clear. And that was on the Ring Road. I'll give you another minute or so to vote in that in case anyone wanted to still vote on that. Obviously, I realise people on Facebook and phone can't vote. Oh yeah, Paul, I'll bring you back in.
Yeah, I'm sorry. One of the questions which hasn't been asked this evening that's on the list is about the park and ride that was proposed. I don't have an answer on that. I just wonder whether anybody has any up-to-date information on that, because I think it's a reasonable question to ask. Because I think there was proposals to move the park and ride at Bristol out to Keynsham, and that would then perhaps raise some questions whether a park and ride at Whitchurch would be sensible or not.
Tim, could you answer that?
Yes, I'll answer that one. The park and ride Hicks gauge is currently planned to be moved down into Barple North East Somerset from Brisbane to Hicksgate. Sorry, it's proposed to move from Brisbane down to Hicksgate roundabout junction, which frees up the actual park and ride site for housing beside the Bristol boundary, and also frees up other land on the A4 corridor for potential housing.
Thank you. I know also there is talk of one at Whitchurch as well. I think at the moment it's safe to say those plans have not gone beyond a few sketched out drawings and maybe the odd report. There is, as far as I know, it's not progressed any further than that. And I know sort of the park and ride can be a bit controversial in Whitchurch Village. So we won't reopen that one tonight because we've just got to the end now, and I realised I said we would end at 8:40. I just want to thank everyone for attending. Hopefully we picked up most of your points and questions. If anybody has any that they don't think have been answered, please feel free to contact us, send them to us. If you're watching this meeting one way or another, you have got a means to contact us. So please do that. And hopefully, if the technology works, a survey will be pinged into your email box, which you can fill in. If not, look out, because we will put stuff up anyway for means to contact us. And the rain is absolutely thundering it down on top of my head, which I'm sure you can hear. I wanted to sort of say thank you, everyone. Did anyone have a final point they wanted to make before we end the meeting? Paul, Kim, and then Faye, I think.
I just wanted to say a big thank you to you, Kim, Tim, and Sarah for organising tonight, because I think I've been trying to think how I could talk to the residents of Whitchurch Village through lockdown and after lockdown. So I think doing this meeting tonight's taken a lot of courage and a lot of skill to do it. So a big thank you from me, and I'm sure from many people who've been listening tonight and watching.
Thanks, Kim.
I just wanted to thank all the people that have supported the Wrong Road group so far. It's really been appreciated, and that includes local residents who put posters in the windows, to all the councillors and various councils. Whoever has interacted with us, it has been truly appreciated.
Right, Faye and then Mary.
Yeah, I wanted to thank you, Tim, for organising the meeting for a start. It's really useful to have us all talking together and to take the questions from people. I also wanted to thank, in particular, Mary and Jill, who have worked so hard from the Whitchurch Village Action Group as well, who laid the foundations. And it's been so useful to be working alongside them and to be working alongside Paul and Tim as well. And whichever group you think you want to engage with, just get involved. You know, just get involved. It doesn't particularly matter which one, but whichever one speaks to you, just get involved. And as Tim Ball said, engage with any consultation that you see. If you've got any questions you want to ask, pop them in any of the relevant Facebook groups. Someone will get back to you, but please don't do nothing.
And Mary, did you want to come in? We can definitely see you now. Now, Mary, I got a feeling you're trying to unmute yourself on your phone, but we're not watching you via your phone. We're watching you via your computer. You're still muted. Sarah, are you able to? Oh, are you able to unmute Mary? Oh. you turned the video on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes? Yes. Right, I can't see anybody.
We're getting a bit of echo from you, Mary, so I think we may be on 2 devices.
Are you okay? Can you hear me? No.
Yes, we can. Yes, please go ahead.
Right. Well, all I wanted to say was thank you very much to everybody that's helped us along the way. We've been going quite a long time, and it was a breath of fresh air when Kim and Faye stepped up. So it's just thanks very much, and keep going, girls. You're far more technical than we are.
Great, thank you very much. And thank you everyone who's attended tonight. We do appreciate that. Hopefully you have found this informative. This won't be the last time we meet. As I said, at the end of this, you should receive a survey. I have just put up the result of the poll regarding the ring road. It was 95% against, 3% undecided and 3% for. So I think that's a fair representation probably of the feelings of the community in that area. But this won't be the last time we do this, and we will look to do this more often to engage with people. I mean, maybe Paul will be leading it next in the village. As I think I said to you in an email, I've got 3 weeks left on this registration, Paul. So I've paid for it. You might as well use it. Okay. Anyway, thank you everybody, and good night. And we will stop streaming now, and we will end the meeting. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.